So it was the first punch gone through. He tried to throw one like glancing jab to the body earlier that missed, but the first time he actually targeted the head of John was when it got ducked under and he got grabbed, and that was the end of the fight. So John never even got touched.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, obviously the performance was the performance, but it also just proves the fact that you are never safe in the octagon with Jon Jones, because the way that Gon was sitting there, he was like, Jon was mounted on top of him against the cage and he was not really hand fighting. And Jon went after the choke the first time, didn't work, but then went right back to it and the fight was over. Like, it just proves that when you're locked in the octagon with that guy, you can't rest. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't think you're safe at any time.
It almost looked like when Jones was on top of him, like Gon, like all of his fight sense just went out the window. Like he just started panicking and he didn't know what to do. And he was sitting there and he was like against the cage, like he was getting choked and he was like, I don't know how to. And then he just got him in the choke. And like I originally thought it was a quick tap because it looked weird, like the camera angle was weird. And I was like, wow, he tapped already. Like that's a little slow. But then obviously when they showed the other angle and it was like right under his neck. I was like, oh yeah, no, he's gonna die if he stays on that for any longer.
what it was, and you're right, because they changed because he had the initial attempt on the choke, but it was on the chin or it wasn't really under the chin.
Yeah,
And then they
it was
switched
like
camera.
it was right there.
Yeah, and then they switched camera angles and switched back. And by the time they switched back, he was tapping. That's why even the broadcast was like, was that a quick tap? And then they showed it back. And when they switched the camera angle, that's when he adjusted it and got his like wrist underneath his chin. And because they were so close to the cage, he was choking him out, not even with like his forearm. It was like his wrist against his neck. And he just kind of leaned on it like that. So, and that's the other thing. I wish we would have, like, credit to him, but we didn't really get to see like how heavy, like how strong heavyweight Jon Jones is. Yeah, he dragged him down and but it was over quick. Like I wanted to see if he was able to kind of just like ragdoll him on the ground and pull him around. So we're going to have to wait even longer to see that. But
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, I thought he did, to be fair. Like when he got the body lock around the back, he threw him down. And then there was that subtle little bit where he like reached through and grabbed on like the far side calf and like pulled it and like threw him down again. Like I thought he was having his way in that first couple of minutes. And it was like, oh crap. Like he did this right. He is a strong heavyweight. Like the time off was worth it because he is a monster.
Yeah, like he even said it in the post-fight interview. Like as soon as I got my hands on him, I knew exactly how I was going to win the fight, and that's exactly what it sounded like. As soon as he got the hands on him and like got him down, it's like, yeah, he like from his movements too. Like he knew exactly what he was trying to do. He knew how he wanted to get him. He knew where he wanted to put the choke. Like it just Gon was just completely outclassed. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I will say though, the only fumble around this whole thing is the fact they're doing Jones and Stipe. I get it. It's kind of cheap pay-per-view buys, but I would really like to see Jon against the winner of Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes, because that is, as a number one contender fight goes, that's one of the best we've had in a while. And I think either one of those guys would put on a really good fight with Jon. Just, I don't know, just based on styles, I guess. Curtis is a wrestler anyway, so he could probably be a bit more defensive and force Jon to earn it a little bit more. And then Pavlovich is like the Russian version of Ngannou. Like for some reason, the guy just puts people to sleep when he touches them.
He's coming
and
quick.
He also like made his like his way up with wrestling. So I think we could get like, those would be two really good fights, but I get why you do Stipe and Jon, because they're trying to build up Jon's resume as much as they can. And so I see it, but I think that's the only miss of the whole night is calling it Jones versus Stipe, like right there in the cage.
Yeah, Jones versus Stipe, I think, is not going to be nearly as entertaining. It's going to be another one like this one where it's kind of just Jones going in, doing his business, ends it fairly quickly, dominant fashion. But then after that, Pavlovich or Blaydes are going to be waiting in the wings, and you kind of got to give Jones one of those guys.
It would have been great like 4 years ago.
That's the thing. I just looked it up, and Stipe's 40. So, like he's already like, I don't know the exact number, but correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't necessarily look, when you watch a Stipe fight, even though it's been a while, that he doesn't really have super long arms. Like I'm trying to find where he would have some type of an advantage over Jon. Like the first time he fought Francis, he kind of took advantage of the wrestling, and then like he's got some cardio things, and he does have some power, but I think Jon kind of gets him sort of across the board as far as when you're matching up skill sets, especially a 40-year-old Stipe who hasn't fought since Francis turned the lights out, has he?
Yeah,
No, he
I
hasn't.
don't think so.
And
Yeah.
like hasn't even like even been in talks either. Like it was just out of nowhere all of a sudden, oh, Stipe's back and he's gonna fight John. Like there's no rumblings, no like potential matches with other guys, like nothing. Like
No,
this is kind of like one of the first times that his name's actually come like up since he lost to Francis.
well, there's been times where like I see him come up and like suggestions and stuff like that, not even from the actual UFC or anybody in his camp, but I almost wonder like, is he retired? Like is he retired yet? Like like sometimes you see him come up with like he should fight this guy, he should fight that guy, or he should take Stipe. It's like, is he even still fighting? And then last night it's like, yeah, Jones is fighting Stipe, by the way. It's like,
Well,
what?
there was talks, like they were trying to get, obviously it was Jones versus Gane here, but that was supposed to be Stipe. Originally it was supposed to be John versus Ngannou, right? And then the whole Ngannou thing happened, and then they tried to make it versus Stipe. And they interviewed Stipe after the fight, and he said, like, I was like, we were trying to make this happen. I wanted this fight in March, like right now, like at this event kind of thing. And he's like, it didn't work out, so whatever. And now Stipe's saying July. But and even John said it in his in the press conference after. He told, what did he say to Stipe? He's like, if I was him, he's like, I'd take some time off from firefighting. He's like, because my full focus is going to be, my full focus is going to be on Stipe. And he's like, I think he should prepare. He's like, he's not getting any younger. He's not getting any faster. And John just seems like, you guys were saying you'd rather see him fight Pavlovich or Blades, the winner of that fight. But the reason they're doing it, obviously, Stipe, like resume wise, is the most like successful heavyweight champion ever, right? As far as defenses.
Yeah.
So pumping up John even more if he takes out the most successful champ ever, then what does he do? Does he like ride off into the sunset showing like, I beat your like greatest striker and then your greatest champion, I'm gone? Or does he start doing things, like maybe like a Sergey Pavlovich? What about whenever like Tom Aspinall comes back? Remember when he was like running through stuff and everyone thought he was like a sure thing to be a champ, and then he just tore his knee apart? So that's another one. It's just we barely even got to see him in the cage today. It's like, you know what it's like? It's almost like when Connor fought Cowboy and it was quick, or when Connor fought Aldo. And you almost feel like you were cheated at it. It was absolutely a real fight, but in the moment, it almost doesn't even feel like it was a real fight because it was so quick. And then some people are thinking like, I've been seeing comments after, people thought it was like they got cheated out of it. And it's like, how good you have to be to make it look like it wasn't even a fight? To make Ngannou look like that after what he's done to everybody else. He turned Ngannou into a wrestler, and to take like 2 minutes to just get him out of there, never even get touched after 3 years off, no ring rust, none of that. I mean, I don't know.
I was watching the fights with my dad last night, and I was just like, we waited 3 years for that.
Yeah.
Like, 2 minutes, and it wasn't even competitive. Like we waited 3 years for that. Like you say, do you know how good you have to be to make people think like that?
It almost feels like John could have fought Stipe right there. He barely took a sweat.
I think Daniel Cormier could have fought him in a suit and put up a better fight than that.
Well, and John said he was going to do that. He said he was going to make it look easy. And you know what else was interesting that I saw after when he was having his post-fight press conference? As we mentioned this before when we talked about him, that he typically in the past has liked to beat guys at their own game. So he's standing there boxing with Gustafsson. And then in the second fight, he decided, okay, I'm just going to get this guy down and really like show my skill set. Same thing with DC. DC likes to wrestle. I'm going to take DC down. So he was almost making it harder on himself. And in this one, very much the whole buildup was like, he was talking about his wrestling. Okay, Gane's the striker. Too bad. I've been a wrestler my whole life. I don't think he can wrestle. I'm going to take him down, get him out of there. And that's what he did. So that's a little bit of a change, typically from what we've seen from him in the past. And then in his post-fight press conference, he said that he thinks he might start taking that approach because he said he kind of felt awkward on the feet for starters. There was something going on that he had a little bit of an injury or something that he wasn't sparring as much. So he said,
well, they also had the tape thing on his foot. He had the tape thing on his foot to take off before the fight started.
Yeah, but he was saying that the striking kind of felt awkward at the beginning, even though he was kind of walking Gane down the entire time. There wasn't much, they didn't really engage very much, but he said he felt awkward on the feet. And then whenever he grabbed him, then he felt more, he says, I've been wrestling since I'm 10 years old, whatever. And then he had mentioned that he's like, I think going forward, maybe I'll take a little bit more of a wrestling heavy approach to my fights. He's like, I want to save brain cells at this point in my life. I got a fiance, kids, this, that. So are we really going to see from now on just like a Khabib version of John Jones at heavyweight, where it's just The striking is absolutely there. I'm just going to find a way to get a hold of you, and the fights are going to be over quick, and I'm going to dominate you on the ground. What does it mean for him if that's his career going forward? Now it's just like John's going to grab you and he's going to get you down, and it's going to be a bad night for you. And that's the recipe for every one of his fights. I don't know who beats him if that is the case. What do you guys think about that?
I never thought about it like that before, but that makes a lot of sense now. Like when you put it like that, it makes a lot of sense because he already has like the resume of ending people. He doesn't have to prove anything in that regard. He's John Jones. He doesn't have to prove anything. He could have just retired and it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, it just grabs you, gets you down. He's got the weight now. It's interesting. I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, he was never like a one punch guy anyway, right? Even at 205, like he had the head kick to DC, but that didn't end the fight. What ended the fight was the follow up strikes and the intelligence and things like that. Like he was always chaining things together. So maybe he's thinking up at heavyweight, like I'm already not one of the harder hitters in the division, and I've got to rely on what I've got. So I'm kind of with you, Brewer. I think we do see a Khabib style from John Jones for the rest of his career, which, I mean, if you look like that, then I don't really know how we can complain.
Yeah. And
how many more fights do you think he's realistically going to go into?
And
John
look,
Jones.
I think he fights Stipe, and I think he fights another contender. And then by then, because heavyweights, the belt gets fought for like once a year. He's going to be like 38, 39 by the time he's done with 2 defenses. So I don't think he's around for too much longer. But I mean, at this point, he's kind of earned it, right?
But what if he has a bunch more fights like this Gane one? What if he just really is that much stronger at heavyweight after all this powerlifting, after putting all this weight on, and he's able to just go in there and get out in the first round every time? To me, that would be more impressive because we've seen him dominate guys and we've seen him have close fights with guys. We've seen fights where it's a ground fight. We've seen fights where it's just like a striking clinic from both guys. John can do it all, and we know that, and that's why he's considered the best ever. But it would almost, to me, be more impressive if he just fully changed his style now and just leaned into the heavy wrestling and was able to just all of a sudden in this new heavyweight version of himself, just get guys out of there, just finish at 35 years old and going up. Because what's going to keep you in there longer if you're in there for 3 minutes at a time instead of these 25-minute wars?
And you're not taking shots
punched either. Yeah, like you say, just
shots at all.
Nothing.
So I when that happened, that was my first thought after my initial shock of like, oh man, we don't really get to see much of this. You want to see more of him. You want to see what kind of skills he's built, what else he can do, what Gane can do. And it's just over so quick. Like I said, same thing as like Conor versus Aldo. But yeah, now I'm so curious. Like, who does if he gets Stipe, because like, do we think there's really, like, can he not just drag Stipe down and do the same thing? I know Stipe's a more...
He will. He 100% will. He'll dodge the first punch, drag him down, choke him out.
Stipe's a much better wrestler than Gane. Like, I get that, but he's not John Jones. And even Curtis Blades, like, yeah, Curtis Blades is a wrestler. Okay, so that means you're going to try and go in there and go screw around with John on the ground?
That's the one. Curtis might be able to survive, man. Because
he might be able to survive. Because
he's not a learned wrestler. He came in as a wrestler. He's not a big heavyweight power puncher and then learned how to wrestle, kind of like with Stipe. Not to disrespect Stipe's wrestling skills, but it's not a big part of his game. Whereas Curtis Blades he was a wrestler turned, average kickboxer almost, right? Like I think that could be the one where he might actually get some resistance. I still think he wins, but I just mean we might see him go out of the first round with Curtis Blades.
So if that's
crazy
that's
that's the bar.
Now, yeah, if that's the bar
that's insane.
At this version of John, then it's like, okay, then why would he stop? If it's like, man, so I think I can find a guy who might make it out of the first round with him. Like, if that's what we're thinking, then like there's no question. Then he's like immediately back up to pound for pound. Islam, I'm sorry, like if this is really the type of guy that we're thinking, then like, I don't know. I would love to then at that point just give me Pavlovich. I want to see a guy that's like the dude's been running through, like the younger dude who's been running through guys. He seems super strong. And the thing about heavyweight too is there's a bunch of like journeymen there, and there's a couple of these young, like the Sergey Pavlovich, the Tom Aspinalls, like those guys that are like, you can see it. You're like, ooh, those guys can be champs. Are they ready? Are they not? Who knows? But there's only like 2 or 3 of those guys really that are ready right now in the division. If John cleans those guys out, then all of a sudden it's the same situation as 205, where it's like, who's going to fight him? And he's been in heavyweight for like 15 seconds.
He's he has a total of like 65 seconds in the division in the octagon, and people are like, well, he might just be the best ever. I don't know.
Well, we're already like, oh, there's no one left to fight him. He fought for 2 minutes last night.
Well, and if that's what we're thinking, like, this is ridiculous. Like, yeah, he still has the longest reach, but now it's not as ridiculous as it was before. I think he only had like a 3-inch reach on Gon. But even so, like Gon's, everyone's saying the most technical, the most fast, the best heavyweight striker the UFC's ever seen. Not one shot landed on John. Not one. Out of there in 2.5 minutes.
He landed one to the groin.
Yeah, instantly. And then John was like, okay, let me get my hands on you. And I thought
Jones got kicked in the balls once. He just decided to end it.
Yeah,
Really.
When he first got him down, I'm just thinking about this now. When he first got him down, but their body positioning was a little bit weird. John was really low on him, and it looked like he was like Gon was like trying to pull out kind of towards the cage. And almost for a second, I was thinking it looked like he had to like really kind of squeeze him and pull him to keep him down. And I was like, okay, this is where we're gonna see like is he really able to hold these guys down? And then the second, Adam, you mentioned the second he like flipped around and actually got his positioning better, it was just like, oh,
He grabbed the far leg. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
this is a wrap. Yeah.
This is a wrap.
Yeah.
And it was so, and even Gon was like, and because once they switched that camera angle, like we're saying before, and you saw the actual submission, like up against a really weird position for that too. And weren't you thinking when he was doing that too, it was so like Lyoto Machida-esque, they were not standing? Like when he put Lyoto Machida out like that against the cage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Same
Gon-
style. Trapped against the cage, nowhere to go.
But it was a more awkward position because you couldn't really get the leverage. And that one, he had kind of got that choke and then pushed him up against the cage. He was already up against the cage. I think that's why Gon wasn't kind of maybe defending at like a hyper, like he didn't think he was that much in danger. Because after the first one, John couldn't lock it in. I mean, you've got your whole like backside of your body against the cage, and John's like chest is pressed right up against you. You're thinking, how is he going to get this? And he finds a way to get like the backside of his wrist under there, and that's enough to get you out of there. So yeah,
it's almost like Jones, like in the moment, like he was like, hey, my first thing's not working. I'm gonna try something new. Let's just use the wrist and just see what happens.
it's just next level stuff. But anyways, what about anything else going on in the card, since we're all just fanboying over John Jones? Something to bring a little bit of go ahead. What do you got?
Well, you said, speaking of fanboying, and if you guys saw the pre-show, I was thoroughly had my lips closed on Bo Nickal's ass. And I mean, the kid's a real deal in a way. I don't think he could go fight for a belt tomorrow or anything, but he just showed that, yeah, like there really is, possibly one of the better wrestlers in the division already. I thought he was going to go in, get a takedown and get a submission. And in the first 3 minutes, he went in, got a takedown, got a submission. There was a bit of question marks around, did he knee him in the groin or did he not? But I think even without the knee to the groin, it was only a matter of time before Nickal got the stop. I think that there's all kinds of fun matchups for him to make among the guys that aren't ranked at 185. And then once he gets into the rankings, I mean, Dricus du Plessis is a number 5 ranked guy in the world. So middleweight's not exactly the most stacked division in the UFC. So I think Bo Nickal's is going to make a lot of noise in 185 before he's all said and done.
And not only is it not the most stacked division, it's a division where the guys at the top of the division aren't the most, decorated wrestlers. So for a guy like Bo, the guys at the top are Pereira and Adesanya and like, okay, Whitaker, yes. But like, you know what I mean? Like those dudes at the top, at the tip top, are strike heavy. So for a guy like Bo, who's, some, dominant wrestler, we'll see how it goes as he works his way up the rankings, but he sort of has a path to success there. Even the way how this fight went, you guys remember right off the hop, he tries to throw a high kick and he falls down. And then
that was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, but then they close the distance, because normally your opponent falls down, you think, okay, I'm going to go shoot something. And just the fact that they close the distance there, it was like, oh, that was a mistake. Like just getting that, like he's on his ass after falling down. So you think you're going to go engage, and now he's got you. And that's the end of the fight. Like that's how the actual choke
Sorry, like his
itself.
wrestling almost reminded me of like when he got hold of him, it was almost like an octopus. Like his limbs were everywhere, wasn't letting him breathe, taking him down, and I'm like, it's a wrap. Like he can't move.
We got him out of there, and
Yeah. Really quick.
the choke itself wasn't even like the technique of it wasn't like he never got to like full side control on it. He was kind of half in mount, so that's why it kind of took a while to get there, but he still was able to kind of to get him to tap out. But yeah, like I think we have both had. I mean, obviously you were Adam, you were raving about him before. I think I had him for like submission of the night. I think that was my pick for that one. But
I think it was. Yeah.
super, super impressive. I mean, we'll see when the step up in competition
Do you
comes.
prefer that submission or Shavkat's
Yeah, or Alexa Grasso's or John Jones's.
or Grosso? That's true. Or John Jones. Yeah, what am I
Yeah.
saying?
4 out of 5 fights on the main card were a sub. I watched the whole card, but I like just put that together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Only one fight was not a submission. That's wild.
yeah. The one you mentioned it though, Shavkat's was like when that fight started, Jeff Neal was landing a couple shots like early. The boxing looked crisp. And then it just seemed like the gas tank was starting to go, the knees to the body, the shots of the body were really starting to take their toll on him. And like the pace, and I didn't realize like how much bigger Shavkat was. He was like substantially taller.
He's
He's a
tall.
big dude.
He's tall, he's long, and then to beat a guy up like that for like 13 minutes, and then at the end just be like, yeah, let me choke him and get him out of here quick, just for this. Like they could have stopped it probably, due to strikes, and he's like, no, let me get the submission. And now this dude, 17-0, all stops, and it's almost split right down the middle, half knockouts, half submissions. So you're talking about some guy that maybe is the most well-rounded guy in the division.
He called out Colby Covington too. Love it.
Oh,
Love it.
I
Take
gotta
my
see
money.
Colby fight again. I
Yeah.
gotta see Colby fight
Yeah.
again.
I would also like to see him fight Bilal Muhammad. I think
Bilal was
Bilal had
there?
a really good performance against Sean Brady last time out.
yeah.
And I think he's coming into his own, some of his best stuff of his whole career. I think he's peaking right now. And I think Bilal Muhammad against Shavkat Rakhmonov would actually be a really good fight because I just do. I think the matchups, Bilal's got the defensive wrestling that might be necessary, as well as we saw really improved stand-up in his last 2 fights against Luque and against Sean Brady. I think Bilal is a really dangerous guy in that top 5, top 10. I think he's ranked like 4 or 5 right now in welterweight.
I think he was 5 last time I checked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a great fight. Colby Covington or Bilal Muhammad for Rakhmonov would be. I mean, that could headline. Well, maybe not headline a pay-per-view, but that'd be a great pay-per-view co-main event.
Yeah, and then we had talked about Bo Nickel and 185. Now we're talking about the 170 side. So I got to bring in, me and Adam talked about this guy briefly with something that of course didn't make it to air because of the technology side of things. But what the hell about Khamzat Chimaev now? This guy's a factor in both of those divisions. And Joe,
Where is he?
Joe, I got to get your opinion on this. Me and Adam were talking about it. With this guy's skill set, now we know he can take a shot after like he did with Gilbert Burns, with his striking, with the power he has, and with the like dominant aggressive wrestling, and with the state of where both those divisions are as far as the wrestlers in them. Me and Adam were talking, and we were thinking like, I think we would pick if this guy came back and like got just for whatever reason got a title shot against either the 170 champ or the 185 champ. We both think like, I think he'd beat them. So that means we think this guy's not even around, and we think he could come back and win both those belts if he wanted to. Would you not, like, who would you pick out of the champs in 170 or 185 right now versus Khamzat? I think we might pick him to win both those belts if for whatever reason he got a shot at it. And this is a guy that's not even been around.
Yeah, that's crazy. I actually I would agree. Like now thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think either of those guys beat him right now. That's really interesting. I want to see him. I just want to see him fight again. To be honest with you, I want to see him. I want to see him fight Shavkat someday, just for entertainment purposes. But yeah, I think he honestly beats both those guys. He could be a 2-division champ by the end of this year,
Crazy.
if he chooses to go that route.
He's like an absolute nightmare for Pereira if Pereira keeps the belt. Pereira, Adesanya was taking the wrestling to him. So that to me is like I almost think.
Oh yeah, that one I think I think it'd be closer against Usman or Edwards than it would be against Pereira.
But
I think
thing is-
Usman could put up a bit of a fight. I think of all the four guys, Pereira, Adesanya, Edwards, and Usman, I think Usman would put up the best fight just based on defensive wrestling at
Yeah,
all.
probably.
But I really do think that he would beat all four of those guys, which is just insane to think.
Insanity. Because then how are we not talking more about this guy if we think, because look, Usman was the pound for pound number one forever. Adesanya was like the 2 or 1. Pereira beats Adesanya. Edwards just head kick knocked out Usman. And we're like, this guy who we haven't seen in years, we're like, yeah, honestly, I think he beats all of them. Like, what? But I think it's true.
I think it's because he turned heel, not to go all pro wrestling, but in the lead up to Nate Diaz with the weight miss and everything like that. I think there's something fishy with that because even he said in an interview, I got called in the middle of the night and they told me to stop cutting weight. Yeah. Which I don't know if that's the doctor or if that's already the UFC with their fingers kind of moving behind the scenes. That card was a mess as is. But anyway, and then just like he was getting booed in all of his interviews after that. He was saying the whole, I'll kill everybody, things like that. And he was getting booed. So I think maybe the fact that that kind of public opinion kind of soured on him a little bit, maybe why he's getting left out of some of these conversations among fans. Kind of the same with Paddy Pimblett. He sours on Ariel Helwani. He kissed Dana White's ass for an entire podcast. And now people don't really want to see Paddy anymore. They don't really care. I mean, they want to see him lose, but yeah. I think maybe that's almost why Chimaev's kind of been left out of some of these conversations is because of the heel turn.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember like leading up to that fight when all this stuff was coming out, it definitely did seem fishy in the moment. And then after the fight, when they were saying like he called me in the middle of the night, they told me I couldn't cut weight or else I was gonna it was unhealthy for me and stuff like that. I was like, why has that never happened for any other big weight cut? Like you had guys cutting down to look like the Diaz brothers were cutting down to look almost like malnourished. Like they looked like they hadn't eaten in like 6 months when they were
those
fighting.
Max Holloway cuts to 145.
Oh my goodness.
He looked like a skeleton.
Well, the Conor McGregor cuts to 145 by the end of it.
Joel Romero to 185. That was I don't know how he ever did that. I mean, he missed weight a bunch of times. That's why, but the last 2 times when he fought Costa and Adesanya, he did not look healthy on the scale.
Well, even Costa cutting down, like when he's just walking around, like he's like looks like big and healthy, and then when you see him in the ring, he's like it's just muscle. Like he's yoked, but it's weird to see.
Yeah, Paulo Costa and Dricus du Plessis. That'd be a fantastic T-Rex arm style fight that I think everyone would love to see. I'd like to see that go 5 rounds as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good
main
one.
event a fight night. That'd be sweet. And it'd be some good lead up too, because du Plessis had some good mic skills in the week leading up. He was saying like, I'm going to be the real first African champ. Like Ngannou and Usman and Adesanya won the belt, but did it ever even make it inside the continent? He's saying like, if I win the belt, I'm bringing it back to South Africa. Like, all this stuff. Like he's got some good mic skills. And so I think him and Costa leading up to a main event, that'd be some good stuff.
And we definitely know Costa can talk, especially on Twitter.
The best follow on Twitter. The best follow on Twitter right now.
On Twitter. He tweets the most random shit.
Yeah.
The secret juice, man.
Oh man.
His Photoshop edits are the funniest thing.
So good. Oh man.
Yeah. Well, I guess like finally here we gotta I'm trying to think of so we don't miss out on anything. We haven't touched too much, at least quickly, on the co-main. Shevchenko. Yeah. I think she was like a -700 favorite or something.
She's -900.
-900. And then Alexa Grasso, who got the submission finish, but was turning Shevchenko into a wrestler previous to that because she was hitting her with the hand.
Yeah.
So what do we think now? Obviously Shevchenko wants the immediate rematch. She did look way bigger and way stronger and longer, and it was hard for Grasso to kind of close the distance, but she was able to do it. She was able to rock her, turn Shevchenko into a wrestler, and then get the way she took that back there after that missed spinning kick. It was like the fastest back to Joe Rogan was freaking about it. And it really was maybe the fastest and most clean back take I've seen, honestly. I mean,
like they're like spinning into each other on the side of the octagon, and then all of a sudden it just had her in the hold. And I was
she was like a leech, like leeched onto her back. Like the hooks were in instantly, and then to adjust and did you guys see the choke in there? I don't know if you guys saw like when they were doing like the post show, like the guys in the broadcast booth, Joe and DC and Anik and them, and they were showing like how tight that choke was around her chin. That the top of Valentina's head was beat red, and then if you slowed it down when Grasso let her arm go. this like strip was like white, and then red on top. So she's got a squeeze on her
Yeah.
too, but she wasn't under the chin.
No, I saw that too. That was insane. It looks photoshopped. It
Yeah.
looks photoshopped. Like you say, from this up, it's just beat red, and then right here, it's like this napkin. Like it was, like that was wild.
Man. Yeah.
For the
I
record,
think it was more of a stylistic mismatch than anything, though, to be honest.
for the record,
that's
I
just
think
kind of
that's
the way.
2 in a row that Shevchenko's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had Talia Santos. I had Talia Santos win that last one.
Interesting.
I think it's a mistake to go right back to Shevchenko. I think she's earned the rematch, so I assume they'll do it. But I think it's time to. I don't know. There's a lot of people coming up in women's flyweight. I got the divisions. I got the standings right in front of me here. Manon Farrow, Talia Santos, and Erin Blanchfield, all in the top 3, and haven't fought. Well, Santos fought Shevchenko, but those are 3, really good options to have at the top. And then, of course, we've got Grasso as the champion now. Like it's almost. I mean, I don't want to say it's time to move on, of course, but I just think some parity in that division might actually be good. But I assume they'll just go right back to the rematch.
I feel like after you've defended the title that many times, they're just going to give it to you regardless. They probably already have it written down. Like it's probably not even a consideration. But yeah, Grasso was definitely. It was weird to see Valentina like look like the less almost experienced fighter. It was kind of weird. Like Grasso was actually like popping her and getting her on the ground, and obviously like how good Valentina is, so that's not really the way you watch it in the moment. But yeah, it was she kind of surprised me. She surprised me
For sure.
and I lost a bet where I have to do a naked mile now that Valentina lost. My friend's cottage.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Get that on.
really tough.
Make sure you film
And
that.
even
We'll
like-
blur it out, and we'll get it on the next show.
Even like you talk about the hands that Grasso showed, like, but even I kind of forget now when it was the first or the second round, but Valentina got to that classic crucifix position and started putting the elbows down. But then within, 30 seconds, they were back up on the feet. And I was like, okay, like not too many people do that where they escape the crucifix with Valentina on top of her. So
Especially-
good on Grasso. I almost think she might even be the favorite in the rematch.
Well, especially thinking you got to give even more props that Valentina naturally was coming from the heavier weight class at 135, and Grasso was coming from the lighter weight class at 115, and they met in the middle. So it was an even bigger disparity than you think, and you could see it in there. Valentina looked much bigger and she looked stronger, but it just and it just looked like she was fighting a smaller, a girl in a smaller weight class, which is almost what she was doing. And credit to Grasso for not only overcoming that, but also overcoming just like the nerves and fighting. Like her and Nunes are like these like unbeatable women, is what it seemed like for the better part of the last like 5+ years. So when you go in there, like, do you really feel like, it's hard to feel like you have a real chance when these girls have just been running through everyone. So credit to her for overcoming all that and actually getting a finish and winning. Yeah. I don't know. Last thoughts, guys, before we get out of here. Anything finally?
UFC's in a good spot. There's so many young up and comers. We got John Jones returning at heavyweight. So you got the kind of the old guard still kicking around, and there's all kinds of contenders coming up. It's a great time to be a fan.
Yeah, there's a lot of juice in the UFC right now. A lot of storylines to follow.
Yeah, we love it, and it's just going to keep going. And there's a bunch of great fights coming up, and we're not going to get into those now, but we'll get into them next time. Maybe we'll make it a thing that we try to do a preview and then a post of each one of these things, and maybe who knows? Maybe we'll start keeping score or something of our picks or something like that. Make it fun. Maybe I'll make some graphics, make it fun. Who knows? But I guess that'll be it for this one. Thanks, guys, for coming on, and we'll see what happens next time. Exciting stuff coming up.